Well, good morning, everybody. Today we're looking in Luke chapter 14, and the setting is a meal that Jesus is invited to. Luke often describes table settings, and in this particular meal, a prominent Pharisee has invited Jesus to dinner, and it's on the Sabbath, which creates all sorts of tension. The fact that Jesus was there with a Pharisee, and it says they were watching him very, very, very closely. So what's causing the tension? Well, we find out right away that Jesus notices that there's a man who has what's called dropsy. And it says that Jesus heals him. But of course, we know that healing on the Sabbath was considered work, and work was forbidden on the Sabbath according to the Pharisees, unless it was it was something that they found to be to their own personal gain. And Jesus points that out in chapter 14, verse 5. He says, "Which of you doesn't work on the Sabbath? If your son or your cow falls into a pit, don't you rush to get him out?" And they could not answer. The listeners remained silent at all of Jesus' questions, which really added to the tension because they knew that Jesus' healing of this man was the right thing to do, but yet it was going against their own human-made laws. And so the silence increases the tension. And so Jesus just keeps on going, though, and it says that he now focuses on the guests, and he saw that as the guests were arriving, they all sort of jockeyed for the most prominent positions at the table. That was a part of their culture, that the way that they showed that they were of high status, and that's the way that they tried to get ahead. And Jesus explains, though, in a very countercultural reality, and it marks his whole life, that self-denial and not self-exaltation is the sign of maturity. The real way to get ahead is to take the place of less honor. And so we look at verse 11. It says, "For those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted." So, in Jesus' teaching, the way up is down. It's the opposite of what culture teaches. In Mark chapter 10, a verse we've read often, we read this. It says, "But among you it will be different. Whoever wants to be a leader among you must be your servant. And whoever wants to be first among you must be the slave of everyone else. For even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve others and to give his life as a ransom for many." So now Jesus has insulted the host, and he's insulted the guests, and he's made the tension level about a 9 out of 10, but he's not done yet. He tells a parable about a man who has a banquet, who prepares a great feast, and he sends out invitations, many invitations, but the first group had better and more important things to do. They didn't accept the invitation because they didn't need the banquet. And now, those gathered at the real table, the literal meal sponsored by the Pharisee, would have understood that Jesus was saying that they were the ones who had refused this invitation, which added more tension to this meal. But Jesus continues in the story and tells about how the man who instead of this first group who had refused the invitation, he now invites the poor and the crippled and the blind and the lame. Of course, these were people who had been considered the lowest class of Israel, ones who knew that they could never have paid for this banquet, this once-in-a-lifetime, chance of a lifetime sort of banquet. And they, of course, accept and know how good the invitation is. So here's what I get from this, I would call it tense table talk that Jesus is sharing with us. Jesus tells us that the way he operates is that it's very different from the self-centeredness of normal culture. For him, humility is the highest calling. The second thing I noticed is that Jesus offers us all this lavish banquet that we would be foolish not to accept his invitation. And our name is certainly on the invitation list. And the question is, do we choose to continue in our own self-sufficient, self-centered ways and give lame excuses like they did in the parable? It's a level playing field, Jesus tells us. Jesus' invitation to his home for this chance of a lifetime banquet is to anyone who will want to come and realize that they can't pay for it, because Jesus has already provided it. He has paid for this dinner. He died on the cross and paid for our sin. Let me repeat, there is an invitation with your name on it. No matter what you've done, no matter what you've not done, no matter how many times you fail, you are still invited. Grace means there's no such thing as being unworthy. And I pray for all of us that we will see Jesus' invitation is the chance of a lifetime, and that we'll accept his invitation to an amazing relationship with him. Have a great day.
If these devotional videos are helpful to you, subscribe to our channel and click the notification button so you know when we post a new video. And of course, please share them with others.